Evan Giddings with Matt Steinmetz here on 95.7 The Game. Our 49ers insider, Cam Inman, is on the line. Cam, what's going on, man? How was your Christmas? How were the holidays been for you?
Everything was great, yep. And we're ready to go full steam into New Year, I believe, which will be Sunday at Allegiant Stadium if Southwest Airlines cooperates.
Hey, what'd you get for Christmas?
You know what? Somebody just asked me that, and all I could think of was everything I kept unwrapping seemed to be socks. So I'm sure I got some other things here and there that were great, but nothing to brag about. Did you guys have a good Christmas?
Oh, fantastic. I actually got a couple pairs of socks myself.
Hey, like, that's the thing, huh? It's like, I guess it's the stockings, right? The stocking hung by chimney with care.
Yeah. I got a new golf rain gear.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to break that in this weekend.
My wife said that one of the troubles with buying me gifts is that I don't want her buying my golf memorabilia or clubs and stuff, right? So I respect that. So I believe that, Matt. Does that not constitute like a blank check now to go get me some new wedges or something for like a real good Christmas present?
Because women never, like, you can't buy a woman a purse.
No.
Like,
that is give you great instructions. Yeah.
Well, yeah, she better be very specific. Very specific.
Well, Cam, are you going to be out in Las Vegas?
Well, that's the plan is to go as long as the airlines cooperate. Yeah, I will be going day of game. No, it's I'm going to spend New Year's Eve here in the Bay, and then I'm going to go morning of, hopefully.
Well, it is interesting because, look, the 49ers and the Raiders obviously used to have the Cross Bay rivalry, and it feels like, based on where the two teams are at right now, you know, the Raiders have just moved on from Derek Carr. He's not with the team. The Niners are getting ready for the postseason. Do you think that some of that sort of, I don't want to call it bad blood, but old blood, so to speak, will be renewed a bit this weekend? Do you think that fans are still as invested as the rivalry, I should say, as they were, say, a few years ago?
Well, I think the fans are. I don't think the players are, but I think I see what you're going with it. And it's like, yeah, it's not the Battle of the Bay and for bragging rights to the Bay, but it means a ton to both fan bases. And there was one of the online ticket places said that they expect 60% of the crowd to be Niner fans. I'm like, it's got to be way over that. I mean, the Niner fans travel so well this year. I mean, when I saw like the huge crowds in Carolina and Atlanta, and I'm like, okay, I can see this, I guess. And then even Seattle, they took over that stadium, which is really hard to do when Seattle was still kind of hanging around the playoff picture. I would expect the Niner fans to swarm that as long as they can get to Vegas, and then that's where the rivalry really exists. And you know, with the team and the players, the way pro sports has become, you want to say like the Rams were their rival, or was it the Seahawks? It's like whoever's like in their way for the division title. And then now that we're kind of beyond that, it's like who's going to be the Niners' playoff rivals? Because could they meet Green Bay again? Will it be Dallas again? I mean, they've had some great playoff matchups with them, and those are in the picture. So it's kind of like I don't see the players invested in the Raiders-Niner rivalries. I mean, people were asking about the Battle of the Bay and the locker room this week, and I just kind of chuckled and go, these guys they don't care about that. That's not at all on their agenda other than to win, you know, game number 16 of 17.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Cam, the 49ers right now are the 3 seed behind, they're a game behind the Vikings. I actually, like, acknowledging they can go to Minnesota and win, I don't think anybody doubts that. I do think it's important to get the 2nd seed because I think I mean, if you can avoid going to Minnesota, why wouldn't you? How much emphasis do you think Shanahan's putting on winning the last 2 games?
I think you have to go in saying we need to win these games until that's out of the picture. Because Matt, I agree. I mean, don't undersell an extra home playoff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've had 2 here at Levi Stadium since the joint opened up in 2014, and they won those handily en route to the Super Bowl in the 2019 season. So I would imagine that will be a big rallying cry, saying, "Look, we are not locked in at number 3." We've seen that the Vikings are vulnerable. They're pulling out these 1-score wins barely. So they definitely could lose in the next 1 or 2 weeks. The Eagles have a quarterback that's hurt. Their right tackle's hurt. They just lost a game. They all of a sudden appear vulnerable again. So it's like, hey, let's get as much as we can and get greedy, get the wins, and get in the playoffs and hopefully stay home. until, the NFC Championship game, or if they can even host that, that'd be great.
Cam Inman joining us here on 95.7 The Game, our 49ers insider. Something that we've been kind of talking about this week, Cam, is the strength or lack of strength of schedule when it comes to the 49ers. And I know that in some of the games, say Miami's running a 5-game win streak. Their record doesn't look as good now after kind of stumbling after playing the 49ers. But how much stock do you put into how much a team has been tested throughout the regular season? Because right now, of the playoff teams in the NFC and the AFC, all around, the 49ers' schedule has been a little softer than those other teams. Do you think that matters?
Evan, I think it's a great point, but I don't think there's a great way to calibrate it, because I don't think there's great teams in the NFL outside of maybe a couple in the AFC. And Kansas City was here, and so we saw how they did against them, and it was kind of a close game until they got blown out in the second half. But you know what? I was just doing some research on how the Niners fared against tight ends this season, because the Raiders have a good one in Darren Waller, right? Mm-hmm. Going game by game, saying, all right, who are the best tight ends the Niners have faced? And, Travis Kelce, number one, right? And he didn't score a touchdown. I think they've only allowed 3 touchdowns to tight ends all year. And 2 of those came in the Falcons game to Kyle Pitts and McCole Pruitt. So it's kind of like, all right, well, those guys aren't superstar tight ends either. And I'm kind of looking at going, they haven't really played any great tight ends besides Kelce, and they haven't played any super great teams. I don't know how many great teams there are, so I wouldn't hold it against the 49ers. And it's not like they're squeaking out wins either. I mean, they're handling their business against these teams. So it's not like they're going, whew, just got by those guys. They're not any good. And then the great stat that's going around right now is that every team that played the 49ers has lost the following week.
Yeah.
And it is a great stat, but I think Dre Greenlaw put it a great way yesterday, saying, I kind of hate that stat because it doesn't tell us whether we're great or if the other team's bad or if they're any good. And so I think that's great that the Niners aren't reading too much into it, other than they can say, yeah, we're physically imposing our will on guys, and they're bruised up the next week and can't play. I don't know. I think that's reading a little bit too much into it, but it is a cool stat.
Is there any concern either with by Shanahan or like even with you that once the playoffs start and that jump in intensity and talent and all that's, is there any part of you worried that Brock Purdy might have trouble reaching the next level of play, so to speak?
Well, it's a great question. It brings up a valid concern. But then you kind of look back and say, well, all right, Brock Purdy made his first career start against Tom Brady and beat him, right? And then he was in a reception line with about 6 players deep afterwards to go shake Brady's hand. So it's kind of like, all right, so he's seen that. He's overcome that. And then he goes into Seattle, a venue where no Niners usually win, and he wins that. So it's like, and it hasn't fazed him. And it hasn't fazed him because, 1, he's confident and very prepared. And 2, he has a tremendous supporting cast around him, including the coaches. So I don't think it's deer in headlights thing coming in the playoffs for Brock Purdy. Not what these teams are going to play, because, I mean, what are you going to play? Like, probably the Commanders or the Giants. And I think you can, dispatch those teams and get to the next round, and then you get to the next round. Next thing you know, it's Brock Purdy's playing for a Super Bowl, 30 minutes from where he grew up in Arizona. It's a great story, the way it's unfolding. And there's nothing that Brock Purdy's done where you go, oh, boy, I just don't know about this guy. Like, there's this big flaw in his game. I don't see it yet. And it could be there, and it could surface in the playoffs when the pressure, like you said, when the pressure amps up. And we'll find out.
Well, Cam, you talk about Brock Purdy, and look, on paper, as far as his statistics, are very similar. I was looking the other day to Jimmy Garoppolo in his last 3 3/4 games. But obviously the offense has taken another step. And last week against Washington, one of the best defenses in football, 37 points is nothing to scoff at. Why do you think that the 49ers offense has been unlocked, so to speak, with Brock Purdy, even though, again, if you match up him and Jimmy Garoppolo on paper, statistically they seem to be similar quarterbacks?
There's a few reasons. One, you can maybe point to how Shanahan is scripting some of the plays. It seems a little bit more of a fun offense, and Brock's got a little bit more mobility to escape and run some bootlegs, and it's an enjoyable watch, right? I kind of like it. And here's the other thing. This game's about turnovers, right? And the Niners are not fumbling the ball. He's had 2 interceptions in his 4 games. That is critical when you can kind of control the tempo and where you're going, and you're not giving up. You're putting your defense in bad positions. That helps the offense also, obviously.
Hey, Cam, let me ask you about McCaffrey, because his acquisition is kind of it's easy to acknowledge that as a turning point in the offense. How do you think they'll if they're fully healthy? Debo's back, Mitchell's back. How do you think this all plays out in the postseason in terms of touches and carries and does Mitchell close in the fourth quarter? How do you think they'll do it?
Yeah, because we didn't really get too much of a look at it, right, with McCaffrey and Mitchell on the field at the same time. I think McCaffrey's your go-to guy no matter what. And if he needs if he needs a break, then you can bring in Mitchell. You can even bring in J.P. Mason to do the finishing off. But it's a nice problem to have, but I don't even think it's a problem. We haven't seen Mitchell on the field yet, right? So he's had to be out for another 2 months because of a knee sprain. So he might get back on the field practicing Friday, probably next week, when they make sure to open up his IR window. And I mean, like you said, I don't think you can overstate how big of an impact Christian McCaffrey's addition has been to this 49er team. They haven't lost a game with him in the starting lineup. He just brings so much to the offense, whether he has the ball running it, whether he's receiving it, or whether he's a decoy and distracting the defenders to follow him. That's like Matt. If you have Mitchell in the backfield, I'd still keep McCaffrey out there in the slot or something, to play mind games with that defense and discover the mismatch. And Shanahan's offense is all about finding the mismatches.
Right.
And if you got a weapon like McCaffrey, wherever he's out there, and it boggles the defense, it's great.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we appreciate you, Cam. Hope you make it out to Las Vegas safely, and we appreciate your insight. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks, Evan. Thanks, Annie. We'll see you guys.